Hare Krishna everyone, so we're continuing with Light of the Bhagavata by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And this is Shravanam Diaries podcast. I am your host Sulalita Devidasi and we are continuing. Text number 31. The four prominent features of autumn are that there is no water in the sky, the weeds that grew here and there in the rainy season all wither away. The muddy roads and fields dry up, and the ponds of water become crystal clear. These four features of the autumn atmosphere are compared to the four orders of life. Purport. In the Varnashrama system, the student goes to the ashram of the master to take lessons from him and serve him, even as a menial servant. These troubles of the student are at once mitigated when he attains transcendental knowledge in terms of his relation with Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. As the white clouds no longer bear the burden of water in the autumn sky, the student finds that the troubles of drawing water from the master becomes a burdenless job if the student, by the grace of his master, attains to spiritual knowledge. Householders who beget children without restriction, like weeds in the rainy season, become solitary as soon as they attain to the stage of devotional service. The family planning of a godless civilization cannot check weed-like unwanted population. People should learn to check sex life by voluntary restraint. This voluntary restraint is possible when one is dovetailed with the service of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavata. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasyan param drishtva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But seizing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Bhagavad Gita 2.59. Well-situated devotees of the Lord refrain from materialistic sense enjoyment, for they are attracted by the beauty of transcendence. Forcible restraint by regulative family planning or similar artificial means cannot work very long. One must be attracted by the transcendence. One can give up the inferior quality of enjoyment as soon as one receives the superior quality of spiritual enjoyment. So, family planning is successful when one is engaged in the culture of the human spirit. The vanaprasthas, who voluntarily avoid cleaning themselves and allow their beards and nails to grow, no longer feel discomforts of these burdens when they engage in the service of the Lord. And above all, the mendicants who take a vow to refrain from sex life no longer feel sexual urges when fixed in the transcendental service of the Lord. Therefore, in all four of the spiritual orders and the four grades of social life, devotional service to the Lord is essential. Without this relationship, all the regulative principles of Varna and Ashrama become burdensome duties, as they have in the age of Kali. When the regulative principles have no aim, the Varnas become a caste system and the ashramas become the business of various shopkeepers. All these anomalies of the present social system can be reformed only by cultivation of the human spirit in the devotional service of the Lord. This is such a topic. How Varnas, without having the actual aim and devotional service at the center, they became caste system. How ashramas became, Krishna Chaitanya. Very important to remember. All these anomalies of the present social system can be reformed only by cultivation of the human spirit in the devotional service of the Lord. Text 32. The beautiful white clouds, freed from all burdens of water distribution, floated in mid-air, like mendicants freed from all family responsibilities. As long as one is attached to the so-called responsibilities of family burdens, he's always full of cares and anxieties about meeting his family expenses. The 4 orders of social life, as designed in the Varnashrama system, are very scientific and cooperative. In student life, one is taught the primary principles of the human form of life. One who enters the householder's life can execute the duties of a family man because he has already been trained for this job in the Brahmachari ashrama. So those people who say that schools should have taught them how to pay taxes and how to basically understand how to live, this is exactly the point. That instead of learning so many millions of useless things in our student life, here it is explained that the duties of the family man have been already, they've been educated how to execute all those duties from the training in the Brahmachari ashrama. After 50 years of age, the householder retires from family life and prepares for the life of sannyasa. The householder is duty-bound to maintain the members of all the 3 other ashramas, namely the brahmacharis, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis. Therefore, every member of society was given a chance to retire for a higher order of spiritual culture, and the householders neglected no one. The brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis all curtailed their necessities to the minimum, and therefore no one would begrudge maintaining them in the bare necessities of life. In Kali Yuga, however, the entire system has gone topsy-turvy. The student lives in luxury at the expense of the father or the father-in-law. When the educated, indulgent student becomes a householder by the strength of university degrees, he requires money by all means for all kinds of bodily comforts, and therefore he cannot spare even a penny for the so-called vanaprasthas and sannyasis. The vanaprasthas and sannyasis nowadays are those who were unsuccessful in family life. Thus, the so-called sannyasis try to construct another home in the name of the sannyasa ashrama and glide down into all sorts of luxury at the expense of others. So, all these varnas and ashramas have now become so many transcendental frauds. Transcendental fraud. Oy. But that does not mean that there is no reality in them. One should not conclude that there is no good money simply because one has met with counterfeit coins. So fake coins. The sannyasa ashrama is meant for complete freedom from all anxieties, and it is meant for uplifting the fallen souls who are merged in materialism. Unless the sannyasi is freed from all cares and anxieties like a white cloud, it is difficult for him to do anything good for society. Jai, Jai, Jai. 1 minute, let me check how... Okay, yes, we'll read one more. Text number 33. There are waterfalls flowing from the hills of the forest, but sometimes water does not flow from them. So the waterfalls are not like ordinary rainfall. They are compared to great reformers who speak or do not speak as the time requires. Purport. There are two kinds of religious preachers. One of them is called the professional preacher, and the other is called the acharya. The professional preacher they're like the rainfall from the sky, but the acharyas are like waterfalls. The professional traders in Bhagavatam and Ramayana will speak from the portion of the scripture that will appeal to the mundane senses of the audience. For example, the professional Bhagavatam reciter will generally speak on the subject of Rasa Lila, which appears to the layman to be something like the dealings of ordinary men and women. Thus, the professional reciters earn money from their so-called admirers. But an acharya will never speak on Rasa Lila to the general mass of people. The Rasa Lila chapters of the Bhagavatam are the most confidential part of the scripture, and they are meant for advanced students of spiritual realization. In the Bhagavatam, there are 12 cantos, and the Rasa Lila is in the 10th. So before one comes to the 10th canto, the Bhagavatam tries to convince one of the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. Unless one has grasped the spiritual status of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is sure to accept him as an ordinary man and thereby commit offenses at his lotus feet by so many unwanted activities. The acharya is he who knows the scriptures well and teaches his disciple in terms of the disciple's capacity to understand and advance in spiritual realization. Therefore, he sometimes does not speak and sometimes speaks. The holy messages of Godhead have to be received from the realized soul, not from the professional man. Although rainwater and the waterfalls are the same, the water from the waterfalls has a different effect than ordinary rainwater. One should not accept messages from the professional man, as one should not accept milk touched by the tongue of a serpent. Milk is good, but as soon as it is touched by the snake, it becomes poisonous. The acharya, therefore, is not a mercenary order supplier like the professional reciter of scriptures. Jai. So thank you so much for tuning in today. The link to this book is in the description, as well as the links to the illustrations. And we shall see you next time. Hare Krishna.